Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today's topic are the missing Mortarchs of Nagash, so without further ado, let's begin. Nagash's eventual arrival has been hinted at throughout the Total War Warhammer series, more specifically during the lifespan of Total War Warhammer 2. Should the speculation be correct about Nagash's eventual release in Total War Warhammer 3, it's very unlikely that he'll come alone. Should Nagash make his grand entrance, it is assumed that the Mortarchs will follow behind him. The Mortarchs were created during the end times by Nagash after his resurrection in 2524 of the Imperial calendar, and served him throughout his campaign, which finally ended with the destruction of the Warhammer fantasy world. They numbered 9 and were meant to be the replacements for his original 9 Dark Lords of Nagash, his most trustworthy servants in the days of old. Currently, 5 of the 9 Mortarchs are already playable in the Total War Warhammer series, which leaves 4 yet to be implemented, and it can be assumed that at least 3 of them will join the Dark Lord in his eventual release. So let's take a brief look at their lore and any special rules they may have had on the tabletop, and finally any possible mechanics they may have in Total War Warhammer. First we have Wallach Hawken, the Dark Star, the Hated. Few legends are as infamous as that of the Grand Master of the Blood Knights. It was this mighty vampire lord that brought the curse of undeath to one of the greatest knightly orders of the Empire, and built a kingdom of terror, where his will was enforced by immortal warriors. Wallach is a proud warrior, his word is a bond stronger than steel, and though he looks upon humans as cattle, a man with exceptional prowess and courage may catch his eye. Such warriors are challenged to single combat. Those that impress him and survive, he invites to join the ranks of the Vampire Knights. Those that fail to put up a decent fight, Wallach will slay without mercy. Knights of the Blood Dragon Order are much like their master, proud, powerful and supremely confident in their martial prowess. Now, it is believed that Wallach is the master of the Bloodkeep once more, and the armies of the dead are said to gather under his banners. Every 100 years, the Blood Knights gather to their keep to feast, recount their deeds and wars, and renew their oaths of fealty to Wallach. One day, he hopes to lead his armies once again to war, and exact revenge for his defeat that he suffered at the hands of the Imperials long ago. During the end times, the newly resurrected Nagash started recruiting many of the world's most powerful undead lords to form his generals. And while he does fall to the temptations of the Blood God later on, it can be assumed that he would start off as a playable undead lord for any forces of Nagash. Wallach on the tabletop was a very powerful character in Warhammer Fantasy 5th edition, specifically geared to fight other characters. His Crimson Blade was specifically tailored to do damage against characters, whether reducing their attack values, reducing stats, or even just outright killing them. Should a dueling mechanic ever be introduced into Total War Warhammer 3, this would be the perfect duelist character, or one of them at the very least. His Blood Chalice buffed him dramatically in a number of ways. It would heal him as can be expected from a Vampire Lord, it would give him extra attacks, and lastly it would make his weapon do extra wounds. The way this could be translated into Total War could be as follows. Firstly, regeneration wouldn't be a thing, instead it would be a constant heal, as vampires already have a natural regeneration. The extra attack buff could just make him a bit stronger in melee combat for a while, and finally in regards to doing extra wounds, it could be that this would just buff his weapon skills, so it's just an extra melee buff in a second form. And lastly, he was his own personal standard bearer, carrying the Blood Dragon standard, which gave any undead near it the hatred special rule against any living creatures. This could easily be a magical item which buffs up Wallach's armies to be able to do more damage to any living creatures. Just something very basic like this, or maybe even just for one specific unit, as banner effects at the moment are kinda weird in Total War Warhammer. Next we have Dita, Doom Lord of the Undead. He was once a great and feared wizard who was forced to flee from Middenheim when it was discovered that he was a necromancer. He built a secret fortress in the Forest of Shadows and concealed it so well that it was never discovered by the witch hunters who searched for him for years. There he slowly built up his strength and plotted his revenge. After decades of preparation, his evil plans reached fruition, and the Doom Lord marched forth at the head of a huge army of undead creatures to attack Middenheim. After a long campaign and many victories, he was finally stopped at the Battle of Bekerhoven. His body was never recovered, however, and it was speculated that he escaped on the back of his manticore. During the end times we found out that he had actually escaped, and he managed to be sought out by Nagash. On the tabletop, Dita was quite decent in Warhammer Fantasy 5th edition, having above average stats in terms of melee combat and being fairly decent in magic, having access to both dark magic and necromantic spells. He also had access to 3 magical items: the Staff of Flaming Death. Once per magic phase, the staff may be used to cast a Flaming Skull spell. The spell itself would work as explained on the tabletop, which has been translated into Total War Warhammer rather nicely. It could be that this would be a 2-use item per battle, or maybe 1 if it's too overpowered. Next would be the Chaos Rune Sword, which is the item that actually made him fairly decent in close combat. So maybe at the beginning of the game he would be fairly weak, but after unlocking the sword itself, then he would become the semi-powerful melee lord that he's supposed to be. Lastly, it's the Power Scroll, which has already been implemented into the game, so it could be that he could have access to it straight from the beginning. Next we have the Nameless. Deep within the Grey Mountains lurked the spirit of a once great enchanter. The creature was of raw power, its mind shattered by a recent defeat, and vowed its service to the recently resurrected great necromancer on the condition that he would see his memory restored, and it would be nameless no more. Many believe the Nameless to be Constant Drakenfels, an ancient great enchanter who was an infamous demonologist and necromancer. He has been described as a devil in human form, who cheated death for centuries unknown, a man with appetites so base they lay beyond satiation, a necromancer, torturer of the dead, dismemberer of spirits, a vileness made flesh, a wizard, a scholar, a monster. It would make sense for Nagash to recruit such an ancient evil, even if it's not at its fullest destructive capabilities. While he was never represented on the tabletop, barring using Luther Huss's dead body, this character has been mentioned on occasion in Total War Warhammer 2, with his place of residence now being added into the Mortal Empires campaign. It's kinda hard to speculate what his special mechanics would be, as he never had an official model and official special rules, but it could be assumed that there could be some special mechanics, possibly a quest system, which would allow you to do some missions for Nagash himself in order and try regain your memories. Obviously Nagash would never grant you full memories, but enough to make you more and more powerful as you regain sense of who you used to be. And lastly we have Queen Nefera. Legends tell of an ancient vampire queen who resides high in the World's Edge Mountains. Most believe this to be an old wives' tale, however a few scholars know better. The Vampire Queen of Mysteries does indeed exist, and those who know call her Nefera, which translates to she who is most beautiful and deaf in the ancient tongue of Nehekara. The haven of Nefera is situated on the highest peak of the World's Edge Mountain, and is called the Silver Pinnacle. From here, she controls her undead servants and her massive network of spies. She leads a vampiric bloodline known as the Lemians, whose ranks are mostly women. Nefera delights in seducing mortal men of pure heart and causing their fall from grace. She is especially fond of Bretonnian knights, for she finds their code of chivalry easy to exploit. Some of her victims Nefera keeps as her lovers, while others she simply drains of their blood. The most favoured of them she transforms into undead servants, though few amuse her for long enough that she will consider granting them the blood kiss. Nefera is one of those few vampiric characters which had a brand new End Times variant when the End Times was released. She was then renamed to Nefera the Mortarch of Blood. Her stat line was actually really good, considering the fact that Monstrous Cavalry at that point had their stats being merged. But obviously that wouldn't translate too well in Total War Warhammer, as she would be incredibly overpowered. Paired with her great abilities in melee combat, she was also a spellcaster, who had access to the spells in the Lore of Death, Lore of Shadow, Lore of Vampires, and the End-Time specific Lore of Undeath. And she had the following special rules. The first one is Feaster of Souls, which in melee combat she had the chance of regaining health. This could be added to her already natural regeneration, where in combat she'll regenerate health faster. Another special rule was Mortarch of Blood, which went as follows. The first time each game Nefera slays an opponent in a challenge, place a vampire within 12 inches of this model. The way this could be translated would be an interesting mechanic. Every time she herself would slay a character, it could be that she will automatically spawn a vampire agent, with the chance of being able to spawn a vampire lord. And lastly, she has Twilight's Allure, which basically meant that anything trying to hit her suffered -1 to hit. This could be translated exactly the same way, where enemies would find it a bit more difficult to actually land a blow on her. And lastly, she had 2 special magical items, the Dagger of Jet, which reduced the stat lines of enemies. This could be done as a special one-off ability per battle, of course, and the Staff of Pain, which when used would also buff the abilities of missile spells. But we've come to the end of our video. Those are the 4 missing Mortarchs of Nagash. Which do you believe will be implemented with the Lord of Undeath himself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various different links to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord, where you can get in contact with the Great Book team. Also in the description section below is an affiliate link with Element Games, where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using our special link and also using our special code, both of which are in the description below, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. Honestly, it's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A special thank you to our patrons Gibraltar LUSC and Ryan Bertsche for subscribing to us at our Fane level. Honestly, you guys are super cool. And a big thank you to our patron Edward Hewell for subscribing to us at our King level. Mate, you're super awesome. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.